Hello everyone, this is Sabita Sunkara and today's SQL interview question is how do you optimize a stored procedure that suddenly starts taking 30 minutes to execute? So this is one of the most common production support question asked for 10 plus years experience of SQL developers and data engineers. So let's understand this with a real time scenario. Imagine you are working in a banking project. Every night, a stored procedure generates a customer transaction report. So, for the past 6 months, it has been completing in just 2 minutes. But today, the support team reports that the same procedure it is taking 30 minutes. The first thing everyone check is did something or someone change the code. But after verification, you find that no code changes were made. Now, the interviewer asks, how would you troubleshoot this issue? So many people immediately say, I will create an index. That's not the correct approach. So as an experienced SQL developer, never jump directly to a solution. So first understand why the procedure became slow. The root cause could be completely different. So the common root causes now let's discuss the possible reasons. So parameter sniffing, we already discussed in previous classes. So when a stored procedure executes for the first time, the SQL server creates a execution plan based on the initial parameter values. So what happened later execution use completely different parameter values. So SQL Server may still reuses the same execution plan. So that plan may no longer be efficient, causing the procedure to become slow. Then the second one is blocking or deadlocks. Yeah, this one also we discussed. So sometimes the procedure itself is not slow. So it is simply waiting because another transaction has locked the required rows or tables. So in that case, the execution time increases even though the query has not changed. Then the third one is outdated statistics. So SQL Server depends on statistics to estimate how many rows will be processed. So if statistics are outdated, SQL Server may choose an inefficient execution plan. This one also we discussed. So missing indexes, yeah, this one is a common one. And if indexes are missing or no longer suitable for the current data value, so SQL Server performs table scan instead of indexes seek. So that increases input or output and execution time. So the new one is tempdb issues. So large sorting operations, hash joins or spills may use tempdb heavily. So if tempdb becomes a bottleneck, overall performance degrades. So then the data growth. Even without code changes, your tables may have grown from thousands of rows to millions of rows. The same query naturally takes longer to process larger data sets. This is one of the most common production issues. Then, how would we troubleshoot? Now, let's see how experienced developers investigate. So the very first thing I check is the actual execution plan. So the execution plan tells us exactly where SQL Server is spending most of its time. Then, for example, table scan or sort operator or hash match or key lookup. So these operators usually indicate where the bottlenecks exist. Now, next I enable set statistics IO on and set statistics time on. These commands help me measure logical reads, CPU time, elapsed time. So instead of guessing, I use actual performance metrics. Then I check query store. If query store is enabled, I compare today's execution plan with the previous successful execution plan. Sometimes SQL Server starts using a different plan which causes performance degradation. So after that, I check the DMVs. So for example, we have views, right? Systematical views, that is DM execute requests, procedure stats or query stats. So these views help identify running requests waits, CPU uses, and execution history. So finally, I verify whether the procedure is waiting because of blocking or missing indexes. At this stage, I have enough information to identify the real root cause. Then, what is the optimization techniques? This one also we already discussed, but here now we have identified the problem, right? We can optimize it. If indexes are missing, I create appropriate indexes on join conditions of where clause or ordered by columns. If statistics are outdated, we can update them. Then sometimes updated statistics alone significantly improves performance because SQL Server generates a better execution plan. So if parameter sniffing is the issue, what we have to use techniques, that is option recompile, then optimize for unknown, then local variable. So the solution depends on the business requirement. Then next, I review the query itself. I remove unnecessary joins, avoid select star, and ensure the query is searchable so SQL Server can use indexes efficiently. I also try to reduce unnecessary data processing. Then instead of processing millions of rows, I filter the data as early as possible. This reduces input or output and memory consumptions. So finally, I monitored TempDB usages. If sorts or hash operations are spilling into TempDB, I investigate memory usage and indexing strategies to reduce those spills. Then the real-time interview answer is, now let's answer this as we would in an interview. If the interviewer asks, how do you optimize your stored procedure that suddenly becomes slow? So first, what we have to tell, I verify whether the issue is consistent and gather execution details. Then I analyze the actual execution plan to identify expensive operators such as scans, sorts, hash matches, or key lookups. Then next, I capture statistics IO and time to measure logical reads, CPU and elapsed time. Then I compare execution plans using query store, check DMVs for blocking or waits and resource uses. So verify whether statistics or indexes need updating and investigate parameter sniffing if applicable. Okay, only after identifying the actual root cause, then do I implement the appropriate optimization and compare the performance before and after the change. Then simply we can't say I will create an index. So because creating an index without identifying the problem may not solve anything. So production troubleshooting is about finding the root cause first, then applying the right solution. Optimizing a stored procedure is not about using one magic technique. So it's a systematic process of analyzing execution plans, measuring performance, identifying bottlenecks, and applying the right optimization based on evidence. So that is exactly what interviewer expects from a senior SQL developer with 10 plus years of experience. So thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more advanced SQL interview questions and real world SQL Server scenarios. Thank you.